Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Hopefully you guys are enjoying your day no matter where in the world you currently are at, whether it's spring, summer, raining, snowing, or, just sunshine happening. You guys are taking care of yourselves. Today's show, we have a lot to cover. I have a good, the bad, and the ugly review, so we are doing Apollo 11, Friday the 13th Part 2, and from 1990, The Rift. We're also going to talk about Mulan. Mulan's new trailer dropped last Sunday, so I have a few thoughts. It's taken me all week to kind of gather them together. And then we're also going to talk about The Lion King, and that's where the bulk of our show probably will be at, because The Lion King has really, become controversial. Blows my mind. I really didn't think this was going to happen, but it has. So let's just jump right into it. Alright, so The Lion King. So much to unpack over this movie. Here's the basic idea. Did we really need a new Lion King? I can understand Disney's point of view. It is from a point of view of we need to make money. And how do we make money? We make money off people's emotions and their connection to older movies. This has been something that has been going on the last couple of years. Obviously, people are very connected to the classics, interwoven into their lives, their childhoods, and so people feel like with Disney doing all these live adaptations that their childhood is under assault. It seems like Disney is just taking, chainsaw to their youth and saying this doesn't really matter, which is not what Disney is doing, but I can understand that feeling. So why is Disney doing this? From a money-making perspective, I can understand why Disney is doing this. Look, here's the simple thing. I know that we kind of forget about this sometimes. Disney is in the business of doing one and one thing only, and it is not making movies for artistic reasons. They are in the business of making money. Now, the directors and the people who are actually working with the movies themselves, they're on an artistic level trying to produce the best movie possible. But as for why the overall, reason for Disney doing it, it is money. It's a safe bet. It is a safe bet, because think about it this way. Let's say on one hand we have The Lion King, and on the other hand we have some unknown property. Disney knows that if they take, 150 million, 200 million and sink it on one movie that they know has a history and a good background and a connection to people, are they going to get the same return as if they sink that money to an unknown property which no one's ever heard of, characters they don't have any connection? Probably not. There's always that chance that it could, but there's always that chance that they aren't. And other than a few exceptions here and there lately, in the last couple of years, Disney outside of Pixar really hasn't done that well. Now, they've turned it around the last couple of years with movies like Frozen. That started to change, Wreck-It Ralph. But for the most part, it has been really dicey for Disney. So I can understand Disney saying, hey, this is a safe bet. We can easily we know that there's going to be a demand for it. Look, I understand. But at the same time, it's a challenge because, look, let's say Disney puts out a movie like The Lion King. You're going to get some pushback because you're going to get people who are saying, well, it's not close to the original. You're changing too much. You're making too many changes. Okay. So they get closer to the story, and then people are going to scream, then why do it at all? If you're not going to make changes, you're not going to improve the story, then why change? Why do it? And so Disney gets stuck into this middle spot where they can't do anything. So Disney has to think, is this worth all the gripe we're going to hear? And I'm going to tell you right now that it is. And this is why. When you look at the numbers for the live adaptations in recent years, it's going to say one thing. They're making money. And like I said before, is a company of making money. They made $924 million at last count from Aladdin. They made $1.2 billion from Beauty and the Beast. They made $543 from Cinderella. They made $966 from The Jungle Book. They made $351 so far from Dumbo, which isn't, it's not great, but it's also pretty good. So the only one of the live adaptations or reworkings that have come out in the last couple of years that didn't do so well was Pete's Dragon, and that only made $143 million, which I know $143 million is still pretty good compared to what they spent to make it, but still. So if they're looking at a money-wise, then how can you argue against them? How can you say, no, Disney, don't do that? They're going to say, we're making money, and that is what they're in the business for. Now, with that said, I don't see them stopping the train at this point anytime soon. They are going to continue to make these kinds of movies. We have The Little Mermaid coming soon. We have all kinds of movies. I've heard rumors of everything from Lilo and Stitch, being redone, to Sleeping Beauty, all of these properties, and speaking of the properties, there's actually a couple of them that I really wish would be made. The Fox and the Hound, Robin Hood. These are just some of the few movies that I kind of welcome them remaking. Yes, I would rather them make new, completely original. But if they're going to be like, hey, we're not going to change or deviate from this, there's a couple titles that I wouldn't mind seeing. The Black Cauldron, that would be great as live action. I know that a lot of you are thinking, but Jose, why do we have to have these movies? Here's the thing, and I'm going to want you to put on your realistic glasses on for a second, okay? And not your drunken youth glasses. These movies are not made for you, okay? Let me repeat that again. These movies are not made for you. So if you're going to sit around and say my childhood has, been ruined, then I don't know what to tell you. Because there is a whole generation of children who did not grow up with the original Lion King. Yes, they can go out and see it, but it's not quite the same. Okay? It's not quite the same. And so to give them this as their new movie, they're not, what, you think a 10-year-old's gonna say, Mom, Dad, no, I don't want to see that because it was only made 25 years ago. It's too soon. No, they're gonna be like, oh, is that cartoon I've seen? Oh, let me go see it, because they don't give a shit about that. They're not sitting there crying that a childhood that happened, to their parents is being ruined. No, they want to go see Simba, okay? So, and with children wanting to go see that drags parents. And yeah, the parents can be like, no, on principle, I'm not taking my child. Really? You're going to be that much of a dickhead? No, your child says, I want to see that movie. You're going to go see that movie, no matter what it is that you're going to complain about. And that's where Disney knows. Disney knows that children want to go. That means families are going to go. And if they do a decent enough of a job, it will attract other people to go in there who also don't give a damn. There are lots of people who say, you know what? There is enough space in this world to have 2 Lion King movies. Why do we have to have just one? It's like telling people, no, Hamlet, we've only done it once. That's all we need. Really? Romeo and, Juliet and Romeo, or Romeo and Juliet, whatever you want to call it. Only one version we need. We don't need to keep redoing this. But that's the thing, is that people sit there and say, it's like, we only need one. No, we can do more than one. We can do a couple of them, okay? So, in that way, it is all about kids. It's all about the kids. Now, a cynical part of me also says that this is great planning by Disney, because this is what's going to happen. This movie's going to get released. There's going to be all those people who are like, no, this isn't my Lion King. They're going to go out and now buy the Lion King, because a lot of them don't have it. So not only is Disney getting money from this new Lion King, they're also going to get money from the old Lion King. So why not have 2 cash cows, squeezing out money? So that's my thoughts on the Lion King. Here in the US, it doesn't come out for another week. I'm not sure what to expect. I mean, it looks amazing, and that's what I keep hearing, that from a technical perspective, it's amazing, okay? So I hear that. But do we really need a blow-by-blow, almost completely same story as before? Probably not. That's not going to stop me from going, and it's not going to stop me from enjoying it. I don't mind. I'm not one of these people who sits there and says, don't give me the same movie. Don't give me anything. I don't mind. Disney, if you want to keep doing these, by all means, keep doing them, I don't mind. So, I'm going to watch it next week, and then once I watch it, I'll let you know how it goes. Alright, so speaking of remakes, we have Mulan now. The first trailer for Mulan dropped last Sunday out of the blue. It was during the Women's World Cup, so that kind of makes sense. Unlike The Lion King, I haven't heard too many people scream that we didn't need Mulan. Instead, the big problem with there is, like I said earlier with The Lion King, is that there's changes being made, and some people aren't very happy with the changes. I personally am very open to the new changes. The original, I was never a fan of the original. It was always kind of like, nah. I watched it and it was okay. I enjoyed it, but it just was one of those movies that it almost didn't feel like the story felt correct for the Disney treatment. It was a story that could have been done more serious, more relevance, for the material. It didn't have to be cued up with a stupid, dragon. I didn't understand the need for that. And it was a movie that, and a story really that was really compelling. But again, it just, the way it was executed during that time of the animated, boom for Disney, I wasn't a fan. And so this one seems much more serious and much more interesting, which is what I'm sure that they were going for. And I am so glad so far, and from what I hear, that the dragging is gone. And so is most of that music. Come on. I mean, the movie has such major undertones about, feminism and, this whole identity of, that if you're a woman, you're less than a man because, women are weak and a woman can do just about anything a man can do. These are some serious topics. And then to stick, some song and dance into it, it just was always like, Disney, you could have done better. So I'm really glad of what I see, some of the action sequences that we see so far. And I'm sure they're, it's still early on, but they look great. I like the dynamic of the look of it. It has a very real feel to it. So I'm very glad about it. One of the turnoffs with all these CGI movies lately is the CGI. It's just so heavy sometimes. And I know, and I've seen some stills from behind the scenes with Mulan, so I know that a lot of it is CGI and, green screen and all that, but at least it has, like, you're in a real world. It's a real place, not some, some fake, space world. And of course, I want this to succeed. And the reason why I want it to succeed is because it's an important movie. I think that the whole premise of it is important, and it's a good life lesson to not only, to young girls, but to women of all ages, that you don't need a man to do stuff for you. You can defend your home. You can defend yourself, be strong. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more, as time goes on from Mulan. All right, so let's get to the movie review section of our show. So this is going to be a new segment. It's called The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly Reviews. So we're going to take one movie that's good. In this case, it's going to be Apollo 11. One movie that's bad, which is going to be Friday the 13th Part 2. And then one ugly, or a what the fuck is this movie? And that's going to be The Rift from 1990. So let's start off with The Good, Apollo 11. This is a 2019 documentary. It was directed by Todd Douglas Miller. And it follows the, basically Apollo 11, from the moment that they were preparing to take off, the day of the takeoff, going through takeoff, through, space, circling the moon, landing on the moon, and then coming back home. It's pretty simple in its makeup. But here is, unlike a lot of other documentaries, this one has no narration. It doesn't have any current interviews. It just lets the footage talk. And let me tell you, the footage is amazing. I am a huge space fan. I love watching documentaries, interviews, and books on the Mercury program and the Apollo program. It all was, it all came from watching The Right Stuff when I was a kid. It has always been a big fascination of mine. And so this movie is it's just amazing. The footage on this of them taking out the shuttle and, in the days leading up to that is amazing. Takeoff, their feelings, everything. It's just put in a way that it just, like I said, it lets the footage talk. You don't need an explanation. There is some added animation added to show you, because sometimes they're going to talk about what needs to happen. And so they've added this animation to kind of explain it to you as it goes on. But that's really about it. It has a great soundtrack. The music is amazing for it. The one thing about it that really hit home is the pressure that they were under. There's a scene early on in the movie while the astronauts are, getting fitted with their spacesuits and everything. Everything is very quiet. You can look in their eyes. You can see in the eyes of, of Armstrong that what they were about to do was death-defying. I mean, the idea that man is about to leave, and land on another planet, how would you handle that? What would you think that morning of? Most of us would be peeing our pants, and I'm sure that they were scared, but that was their job, and they did that, under so much pressure. The other thing about this movie is that it is a really big reminder that the most advanced things that humans have ever done was 50 years ago. Today, if we were to do that, it would be such a, liberal conservative thing, are we planting, liberal, flag on the moon? And it just would be so crazy. And back then, it wasn't. It was let's get to the moon as one group. Now there has been so many stories that have come out of that, and so many things that it really saddens me sometimes, because the way we're currently going, we're going to die on this planet. This planet is someday not going to be here. I mean, it's millions of years unless, we kill it before that. But we're going to die on this rock if we don't fix it. If we don't figure out how to come together and stop killing this planet, we are going to die on here. So do I recommend Apollo 11? You better bet. It is a great movie. And if you're a fan of documentaries, if you're a fan of space movies, of history, of just life, you should really give your chance, a chance to see that movie. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to see it when it was released to theaters. I missed it. But even seeing it at home, it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. So next we have The Bad. And this is Friday the 13th Part 2. It's a 1981 horror movie directed by Steve Miner, who also directed Lake Placid, Forever Young, and would go on to direct Part 3. So if you've never seen Part 1 or just Friday the 13th, I would really suggest you watch that movie. It is an important movie in the terms of history of horror movies in America, not only in America, really in the world, because it really was the introduction of the commercial slasher film. Slashers, had really been come into its own with Halloween, but that was more of an independent movie. Friday the 13th was the first one that was made by a major studio, in this case Paramount. So it was a movie that was really pushed by the studio machine. So now we have Part 2, because Part 1 did so great, we gotta have a Part 2. What is the story this time around? So it takes place, or at the beginning of the movie, we rejoin the one survivor from the last movie, Alice, and this is 2 months after the first one was done. And she, after finding, good old mom's head in the refrigerator, she is mysteriously killed. So then we fast forward 5 years, and a new group is opening up a new camp near the old Camp Crystal. And everybody starts to be killed. I gotta tell you, you understand what's happening, you understand what's gonna happen, and you understand how it's gonna end. It all really is pretty non-interesting and nothing new. We still don't have Jason with his husky mask on. In fact, when you see Jason, he has like a burlap sack on his head. I mean, seriously? It doesn't offer anything amazing. And yet, I wasn't bored. I amazingly was not bored. So it's not awful. It doesn't really go anywhere, but it's not boring. So what does that tell you about it? It tells you that I'm gonna watch Part 3 pretty soon. This was the first time that I had ever seen Part 2. I'd seen Part 1 many times over the years, but I had never seen Part 2. And I knew what I was getting into. If you go into a movie a lot of times and you know what you're expecting, you're not expecting high art, you're not expecting, the greatest movie of all time, movies become much more enjoyable when you tell yourself, I know what this is. I know what I'm expecting to get from it. Then it becomes something where you can turn your mind off of it and just enjoy for what it is. And that's what I did. So should you see this movie? Obviously, if you're a horror fan, you either have seen it or you will see it. For anybody else, it's really probably not worth your time. It really isn't. It doesn't offer you anything than if you're just one of those people who wants to see all the Friday the 13th movies. It really doesn't offer anything to anybody else. Because unlike the first one, which I always recommend, the first one I recommend to anybody, even non-horror fans, because it is an important film in the history of cinema, even though it doesn't get treated as one. But part 2, not so much. All right, so that brings us to our ugly, or a what the fuck is this, where I'm gonna try to reach out and bring you some of the worst that cinema has to offer. And our first movie is The Rift from 1990. It was made by Juan Simon, which is a Spanish director. He also directed a horrible movie called Slugs from 1988 and Pieces from 1982, which was not that bad. It wasn't great, but it was not that bad. Look, this was made during a really weird time in the movies where it seemed like sub-movies were just everywhere. We had The Abyss. We had all these movies that were taking place in submarines, you know, and the trend would continue for a few more years here and there with movies like The Hunt for Red October. Spear was another one. But it was during this time where it just seemed like Hollywood bought a couple ships and said, we're gonna get our money's worth out of these subs. Look, the story is pretty basic, okay? There's this guy, he designs a sub, and then the sub is taken over by the company that he designed the sub for. They kick him out, and then somehow they lose the ship, and they're like, you have to come back and help us find our ship. And so with the help of the Navy, they get a group together and they go looking for it. It is so by the numbers that you know what's going to happen. Look, they're going to go down there. They're going to find the missing sub. They're going to find out some secret evil plot by the company. And then, you know, the heroes do what heroes do. In the course of the story, the guy's ex-wife is there and they're going to reconnect because that's what you do under stressful situations. It has such bad acting, but amazingly, just like Friday the 13th Part 2, it's not terribly boring. It isn't. Was I glued, you know, to the screen the full time? No, I was doing other stuff, but I wasn't ever bored by it. There's some horrible special effects. And again, it didn't take it away because the thing is that even though the acting was bad, the effects was bad, and the overall story was boring, it was just passable enough. The story and the pace kept clicking. It kept on moving. There wasn't like, you know, let's have, you know, moments of seriousness here. Everybody knew what they were doing and they kept the ship going forward. Can I recommend it? Only if you have nothing else to watch and your legs are broken and you just happen to be in bed, then maybe. And it's 3 a.m, then maybe I would recommend you watching it. But other than that, probably stay away. It is, I'm going to tell you right now, it is so laughable at times, the bugs and the creatures that they run into in the quote-unquote rift at the bottom of the ocean. Again, it was an enjoyable time. All right, so thank you for joining for today's show. Just a quick little reminder, subscribe. We produce new shows 5 days a week. So go ahead and subscribe to be notified when new shows are available. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcast at. Follow us on social media. You can go to the show notes and get the links for everything. I'm currently going to go out and go watch The Crawl tonight. In fact, probably in a few minutes, I'm going to go watch that. And I'm also going to go watch Stuber. So those reviews will be coming up in the next few days. So thank you and have a great day, everybody.